Hey, in this video I'm going to show you a little bit more in depth how to take a normal Divi contact form and turn it into a multi-step form. So this is just a form I've built out with Divi. There's nothing special to it. It's just a normal standard form. Let me jump over here where I've got it open in the Visual Builder. And we're going to go ahead and start adding steps to this form and turn it into an actual multi-step form. So the first thing we need to do, here's all of our options that are already here natively in the contact form. The first thing we need to do is start adding the steps. And to do that, we just add a new field. For the field ID, you can enter pretty much whatever you'd like. I like to do, my recommendation is all lowercase characters and no special characters. So no question marks or apostrophes or commas or spaces or hyphens, or I mean, you can do hyphens, but dollar signs, anything like that. So I like to just do step 1 for the field ID. It really doesn't matter. For the title, it can be whatever you want the title of the step to be. So it could be maybe personal information, whatever. It really doesn't matter. And then for field options, we're going to select form step. By default, Divi is going to say, okay, this is a required field. We need to turn this off because it doesn't create an actual field for users to fill out. And so if we leave it as required field, it's going to throw an error, and Divi's going to say, make sure you fill in all required fields, but there won't be any more fields for people to fill out. So anytime you create a form step, always make sure required field is set to no. Now, if I jump back to text, you'll see we have some other options here now that we've made it a form step. So if I don't want to show this title, I can turn it off, or I can leave it on, and this will actually show on the form itself. And there's also a box here to show instructions for the step. So if I wanted to explain the step a little bit, I could put some text here and it will show above the fields in that step. Okay, so that's really all we need to do for the form steps, because if you notice in field options, there is nothing else to fill out. So I'll just okay that. Now, your multi-step form always needs to start with a step. So I'm going to drag this up to the top. Step 1 should always be the very first thing in your form. And then after that, we can break forms up however we want. So for example, we have name and email address. That could be the first step for personal information. So our second step should probably start here. So let me add another step. And I'm going to call it step 2. And I'll call this one, I don't know. More options. It really doesn't matter. I would call this whatever makes sense for my form. Field options, form step, not required. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag that where I want that second step to start, which is going to be just after the name and email address. And then so we'll have these options: bathrooms, bedrooms. I'll put a third one like right here. So add new field, step 3. And I'll just call this another form step. And we'll set it to be a form step, not required. And so we'll drag this about here after bedrooms. Yeah, and 3 steps should be good. Okay, so now what we need to do is enable those steps. And that's going to be under elements. Here's this option right here, enable multi-step features. And actually, before I do that, let me just save it, and I'm going to show you what that looks like and why it is this way. So I made it that way. So now if we refresh this page, you can still have a form that's broken out into different sections. See personal information, more options, and you can style this in Divi. This is just the plain version here, but you can style this however you want. So everything is still here. It's just it's in steps. It's all on one page. So if you wanted to do it this way, that's totally fine. But if you want the actual multi-step features, we just come down to elements, enable this, and now we've got all these other options that just popped up. So our progress bar type, we can either do none, a step counter, or a progress bar. I'm going to set it to the progress bar. Do you want it to scroll to the top on each form? I like to leave this as yes. That way, if one step is longer than the other, when it finishes, it will scroll up to the top, the start of the next step. And this is just a where you can adjust how far it scrolls up off of the top, which is useful just because depending on how your page is laid out or how long your form steps are, you may want to adjust this to fine tune where it scrolls to the top of the form. The auto next is a new feature where anytime all required fields on a step are completed, it will automatically move that user to the next step. So this is useful if you have small forms where every field is going to be required. That way they don't have to keep clicking the next button if you don't want them to. So you can enable this, and once all required fields are filled out on a step, it will automatically move the user to the next step. And then this is just style stuff for styling the progress bar. If you want to change, under the design, if you want to change things like what the buttons look like or what the buttons say, that's just under buttons here. By default, this is the submit button like you normally have for the contact form. And if I keep scrolling, you'll see that we have enable custom styles for the back button. And I'll turn this off just to show you that there's enable custom styles for the next button. So the back and next buttons have their own styles, and you can choose what they say in the button. By default, it just says back, but you could literally write anything you want here if there's another word that you want to use. And then you've got your normal customization things here, like the text size, the text color, background color, what you're used to seeing here in Divi. That is pretty much all there is to it. Let me go ahead and save this form, and we'll look at the final product here. So let me go ahead and refresh this page. And you'll see now, here's our progress bar, and we only see the first step. So I think I have some, for testing, I think I have some longer things here. So let's do this at WP Creators Club. I think it's going to tell me this field isn't long enough. Yeah, minimum length 10. I did this for testing. That's a thing that I put on. Let me go to the name here. Under field options, yeah, see I set a minimum length of 10 and a maximum length of 56. Just for testing I did that. So I'll just write, I think that'll put it to, there we go. See, now I went to continue, and it takes me to the next step, which is that next group of options. So the check boxes and a couple select boxes, and you'll see our progress bar has moved forward. So now we're right at the end. Here's our last couple. Test message, submit request. There we go, success message, sweet. So that's all there is to it. You just take your normal form and you just add in your form steps right in the Divi builder, and make sure that you enable those. Enable the multi-step features here down under elements. But everything else about the Divi contact form works exactly the same. The other thing that I just want to reiterate is that for your field IDs, you need to make sure that you use all lowercase English characters, and that comes from Divi itself. If we look at the contact form module under field ID, here you can define a unique ID for this field. You should use only English characters without special characters and spaces. If you do, you're going to get an error message if you use non-English characters, or if you use special characters or spaces. When you try to submit it, Divi's going to throw an error and say invalid submission. So you want to make sure that you stick to all lowercase English characters, no special characters. You can do numbers, obviously. And then also make sure that you always set field steps to be not required. Your other fields can be required if you want. It doesn't matter. Like if I want to make sure name is a required field. That's totally fine. Doesn't matter. But you just want to make sure that your form steps themselves are not required. And then this date time picker comes from another plugin, the Divi date time picker plugin, which you can install. And once it's installed, I mean, you can run these two plugins right alongside each other and turn normal inputs into date or time pickers. But that's a topic for another video. So hopefully this was a little bit more clear, a little bit more in depth. But if you have any questions, obviously definitely feel free to reach out to me at the WP Creators Club under wpcreatorsclub.com/support will take you to the product support page, where you can enter a little information about the product that you're using, product versions and stuff. Let me close this. There it is. So if you get stuck, you can always reach out to me on the product support page here. So, all right, that's all there is to it. I will see you guys in the next video, and happy creating.